Today we are starting a circular weaving, and we are going to make our own loom. So you might have a brand new one, or you might have one that somebody has used. Making this with a paper towel tube and 5 popsicle sticks. The top has to be odd, so 3, 5, 7 work great. So we have 5. When you get your loom, check that those popsicle sticks aren't wiggly at all. If they are, you might have to add a little more tape. You're going to need to tape over the name on your loom if somebody's name is on there. And then you're going to write your name in that spot on the tape so that it can be taken off for somebody else to use next year. At this point, my loom is ready and I need to get my yarn. So we've already seen that we're going to start with 2 arm stretches of yarn, so you know what that looks like. I have black. So to start, I'm going to put this black in the tube so that a little tail is coming out the bottom. It just needs to be 1 inch or 2, but you definitely want to see some yarn coming out. I have a bunch of yarn that is not in the tube, and I know it's not in the video either, but it's all kind of right here. This is the yarn I'm going to weave with. So I like to kind of hold this tail in my hand so that it's kind of snug and it can't pull out. I'm going to take the top part where all this extra yarn is, and I am going to start by wrapping it around one of the popsicle sticks. So I'm making sure I'm pulling at the bottom, not super tight, but I just want to make sure I can't pull the yarn out. I'm going to come around to the next door neighbor and wrap that. Next door neighbor in a circle. Next door neighbor around that circle. When I get to my starting point, I should see a pentagon shape. So you can kind of see it looks like a 5-sided shape. Now I'm to my starting point. I'm going to go around 2 times. 2 rows on each popsicle stick. So again, I'm holding down here and wrapping with my other hand around. They are not super tight. Do you notice how I can move them up and down? So the second layer is my top layer. Now I'm to my starting point. I have 2 rows on each popsicle stick, and I can see almost 2 pentagons, one on top of each other. Now that I have 2 rows on each popsicle stick, the bottom row is going to come up and over the top one. And I'm going to go to the next popsicle stick. The bottom is going to slide over the top. I am locking the yarn together. The bottom comes over the top. The bottom over the top. Bottom over the top. And I repeat. Notice how I kind of pushed those down so they're down on the popsicle stick. I'm going to take this long strand. At this point, this tail kind of went up a little bit. I don't really need to hold that or pull it anymore. Once you have that first row done, it's pretty locked. With this long tail, I'm going to continue around and around and around and around and around, and I stop. As I look, I have 2 rows of yarn on each popsicle stick. The bottom comes over the top. Bottom over the top. Never do you want more than 2 rows of yarn on each popsicle stick. That's not going to work for our weaving pattern. 2 rows, and then they go over the top. So what do I need to do now? You got it. Wrap around. As I'm wrapping, I am going inside the tube. So my yarn's going across the tube. It's not going outside and around. I'll show you the difference. This is going to go in and around. If you go outside and make your row this way, you're not going to see that pentagon shape, and it's not going to lock together. So I cross in and around, inside the tube and around, inside the tube and around, inside and around. Do you notice how this hand that's holding the tube is doing a lot of work too, making sure these are nice and neat and pulled tight? I have had kids pull too tight, meaning they could not move their yarn to get it over the top row. So I'm going to start here with this tail. So when you're doing this wrapping, don't pull so tight you bend those popsicle sticks. Leave them fairly loose, not so loose you have huge strands of yarn. At this point, you can kind of see that it's starting to weave. I can't see much happening at the bottom. So I'm going to continue until I'm almost done with this black yarn so I can show you the next step. I have weaved quite a bit of this black that I started with. I have a tail that is probably about 6 inches long, or if I lay it on my hand, it's as long as my hand is. I want to leave that long of a tail at the top so I can tie my next color of yarn on. At the bottom, you can see that my first color is just starting to come out the bottom. If I pull, I see more of it. It's kind of hidden up there yet. This takes lots and lots of repeating before you're gonna have anything coming out the bottom of that tube. All right, so with that black tail, I am ready to tie my next color on. There's 2 ways to do this. I will show you both ways and then I'll tell you which one I think is easier. So I'm gonna switch colors. You get to decide how many colors you're gonna use or if you're gonna do a pattern. Just like when you tie your shoes, you wanna start by crisscrossing them. And then that black is going to come over the top and around. So I've kind of crisscrossed and made an X. I'm going to repeat that. Black is going to go over the red like I'm tying my shoes and then through this circle. At this point, I have to pull all 4 parts of these yarns at the same time to get a nice tight knot. You can trim these a little bit if you like. Don't trim super close to the knot. So then you would just keep weaving. And then when you get to that knot part, just pretend it's the same color yarn. Those little ties can go in the tube and be hidden. And you're not even going to see where that knot is. So I have 2 rows and I'm ready to continue my pattern. All right, that's one way of knotting. Let me show you another way. This should look familiar to something we've done in the past. So I am going to cut this knot off just for now. You wouldn't want to cut these apart, but I just want to show you the other way to knot 2 pieces of yarn together. All right, my tail is a little bit shorter this time. I'm going to take the other color, the red, and I'm going to put them side by side together. Those 2 pieces are going to wrap around my fingers, and then the tail, both colors, goes between my fingers. I call this a balloon tie. If you've ever tied a balloon, it looks a lot like this. And when I pull, I get my knot. I think this way is easier. You can decide as you start adding more and more pieces of yarn onto this, which way works best for you. Again, I continue around and around to get my 2 layers, and around and around. It unraveled a little bit. That's going to happen. Once I have my 2 rows on each popsicle stick, I'm going to take that bottom one, go over the top. So continue working. Some of you might get to that second piece of yarn today. Some of you might need another art class to get that far.